The ideas that gave birth to our nation are the ideas that our nation is resistant to right now, and we should talk about that all the time.
In a world where narratives are shaped by corporations and gatekeepers, independent voices matter more than ever. Badlands Media brings together citizen journalists, researchers, and independent thinkers.
The truth is triggering.
Question the narrative. Explore the facts.
It's authenticity, courage, resilience.
Search for the truth others won't.
It's not about being first or being right.
The information war is changing.
It's about being authentic.
Embrace the friction.
Embrace the friction.
Shut the f*** up.
Authentically antagonizing. Join the movement.
I'm going to say how I feel.
Follow Badlands Media.
This is about the future.
The Badlands. What are the Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like the cat with the laser pointer. It's like you've led the cat up to the top of the building, and now you're leading it over the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like over-capitalize in whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well-organized and well-funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily. It's Tuesday, joined by the one and only ghost of base, Patrick Henry. Gordon, how you doing, brother?
I'm fantastic, Brian. I'm fantastic. How are you today?
I am living my best life. I am free from all the propaganda of the Hanta virus.
Yeah. I was listening to the show a little bit yesterday, and I mean, dude, it's just so insufferable and so forced. And I don't think we have any stories to cover on today, thankfully. But I do want to show you this. I posted this a little while ago. Like, I just went and just typed in hantavirus to, let me share my screen, to whatever, the browser. And this is what came up. So for those who can't see the screen, there's the first four articles that come up. It's The Guardian, NBC News, Fox News, New York Times. The Guardian, WHO head tells countries to prepare for more hantavirus cases. This is all from like the past 2 hours. NBC News, hantavirus cases rise to 11 as cruise ship passengers quarantine. Fox News, hantavirus outbreak, 18 Americans monitored in Atlanta and Nebraska. The New York Times, opinion, we should be taking hantavirus more seriously. And this is kind of what COVID was doing in late January. Yep. I remember laughing about it when the people at my work, in my office, were talking about it. And they were like, I couldn't tell, I didn't realize at the time like how liberal everyone was. And I couldn't tell people were actually afraid of it. So I was like laughing about it. I was like, this is so stupid. I can't believe y'all are like, people were actually upset about this. And my recommendation, if you would share my screen one more time, this is how I expect every able-bodied man in America to respond when anyone in your life brings up this topic in an earnest way.
Young boy done me bad. Going to the airport, I'm kind of in a hurry too. Sorry, your seatbelt seems to be broken. What do you recommend I do?
I recommend you stop being such a faggot. You're in the back seat.
Now I got a phone to fit with you, and I'm saying not true. Oh, and
The look on the taxi driver's face when he backs up and he hits his head. That's exactly how you need to act, though. If anyone brings this virus up in any real way, you need to laugh in their face and tell them to stop being such a little bitch and to get over it.
So if you go back to COVID and you brought up January, this is when this kind of started up a little bit here. We got the first confirmed case in Washington. Oh, there's 3 cases. Oh, then there's 11. Oh, now we've got a tracker telling you how many deaths there are on the side of the screen on every major news outlet across the country. When they did that in January and, started moving into February and March, by the time we got to the 2020 election, what did we all say? Oh, this is bullshit. By that point, so many of us had already checked out of this system. Now, I can remember March and April. There was a time, March, April, May, where people were like, okay, maybe we should keep an eye on this. This may be serious. This may be something, they had us locked down and everything else. But by May, we were like, okay, F this. We're done with this shit. So then you still got June, July, August, September, 4 months before the elections actually started. So if you think about the timeline we were on in 2020 and you compare it with the timeline that we're on right now, they actually just took out that window to where it leads up to the November election, and we're all still checked into the system. Not all of us. I mean, we're immune to it now. I think many of us were immune to it in 2020. I never stopped living my life as normal, but many people did. And so, is there that possibility that this is the deployment just on the proper timeline, on a better timeline, one that's more, readily in line to thwart everything ahead of the 2026 election? I don't know. We'll see. The redistricting war is not going the establishment's way. And, if that's it's not going the Democrats' way. It's still the establishment is still, in place. But, it's fantastic to see. I hope you guys check out of this.
Well, I know there's a lot of people who just can't quit Fox News, and you just need to understand that Fox News is going to be a part of this. Like they've already communicated that they're going to be a part of this. And so if you continue to watch Fox News, not only are you supporting people who hate you and lie to you every day and whatever, they're going to be part of this whole thing, like this whole web of lies all over again. And the point, of course, is to shut down the economy that's coming. Not the economy we have today, because we still have we're still dealing with the bullshit from the Biden years, but the economy that we're going to have in 6 months to a year, when all the stuff that was laid down over the past 15 months comes to fruition and comes online, which it is right now. There's a lot of stuff that's coming online right now. They're trying to shut all that down. They're trying to short circuit it. So Fox News is going to be an active participant in that effort.
Yep. Today's also the day, I think it's today, or was it yesterday, where Fauci's alleged statute of limitations expires. Of course, a conspiracy, the last furtherance of that conspiracy would keep that going, so they can piss off with that as well. And then tomorrow they're supposed to have, Rand Paul's supposed to have some senatorial hearing where they're supposed to have a whistleblower that comes forward. And this time it's the real deal, guys. Don't stand on that rug. I'll watch it, but don't stand on that rug.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into our sponsors for today's show. And first up, folks, we've got our friends over at mypillow.com.
It's finally here, our second annual mega sale. This sale only comes around once a year, so take advantage of the best offers ever while you can. For example, save 50% on our Giza Dream bed sheets, as low as $29.98. And for the first time ever on TV, MyPillow mattresses and MyPillow mattress toppers as low as $99.98. And you save 50% on our Lux Pure 6-piece towel sets. Regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And our best-selling standard MyPillows, regular $49.98, on sale for $17.98. Wait on it, mega sale, only $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. But wait, there's more. To make the mega sale even more special, when you order right now, your order's going to ship absolutely free.
All right, mypillow.com, promo code Badlands. If you have not done so yet, please smash that thumbs up. And then let's get a quick word from our friends over at Pet Club, and we'll get into the news.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
All right, Pet Club 24/7. Start out well. We're actually going to call an audible here. Ghost is going to have to head out in about an hour. So, Ghost, I'll give it to you with geopolitics first today.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. I just found out. Okay. Let's see. But do you have any geopolitical stories that you wanted to cover? We can start with those.
I absolutely do.
Let's start with those.
All right. So first up, let's go head over to Venezuela from the U.S. Department of Energy. The NNSA removes highly enriched uranium from Iran. Oh, wait, no, from Venezuela. Reducing risk to South America and the U.S. homeland. Is this like a new thing? Like Venezuelan nukes? Is this a new thing?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of Venezuela uranium, but here we are. I do know that Venezuela has a ton of like rare earth and stuff there. Like there's a bunch of resources there. I mean, it's adjacent to the Amazon, so that's not surprising. If you look at where all of the crazy rare earth stuff is, it's in the heart of the Congo, where like the deepest parts of the lush forest, like the lush rainforest, and that's what you have in the Amazon too. So it makes sense that you would have crazy rare earth stuff around it.
Yeah, the hardest parts for us to get to, or we purport to go to, and then we use the alien technology. And kind of kidding, halfway kidding, but
yeah.
The U.S. Department of Energy's National Nuclear Security Administration completed the removal of all remaining enriched uranium from a legacy research reactor in Venezuela. This was part of Trump and Rubio's three-phase plan for Venezuela, fast-tracking the retirement of the nuclear risk, marking another historic milestone for DOE. For decades, Ghost, this has been a problem for decades, apparently. For decades, the RV-1 reactor supported physics and nuclear research. Once that work finished in 1991, its uranium, enriched above the crucial 20% threshold, became surplus material. And safe to say we've gotten it all out. The reason I thought this was interesting, Ghost, is remember Trump Doral, when he was at Doral, and says we're on the Venezuela plan. And, we saw the extraction or the capture, whatever you want to call it, of Nicolas Maduro in January 3rd. Here we are 5 months later, and now we've extracted all the uranium from Venezuela. We killed Khamenei in February, in the first strike there. So, are we on that same Venezuela timeline that Trump alluded to, where we're going to see all of the uranium extracted by the U.S. in maybe 5 or 6 months in the same timeline as Venezuela, perhaps? I don't know. But it's just fascinating to me that this whole time Venezuela's had 20% uranium, or more than 20% enriched uranium. This was never a thing. Like, nobody was like, we got to stop Venezuela from having the nukes. But here we are. We stopped it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the more interesting dynamic here with Venezuela is just what's going on with the oil, because now that you may have seen the call to put export, like to do the export ban, right, on oil. Have you seen that story? Let's pull that up. Oil export ban. Yeah. So there are calls now for Trump to ban oil exports. And there's a discussion on this, and this was, so this is a story from a month ago. And there are, there's a lot of conflicting opinions on it. My opinion is that the government shouldn't be restricting the free market. But basically, it's like if we ban the export of oil, meaning all the crude that comes here stays here, and then it gets refined. The argument, immediately you'll see a price drop in the U.S. for gasoline. But the concern is that long term, you're actually gonna mess up the refiners, because they're gonna have a cap on their productivity and their output. And then once you lift the export ban, it's going to screw up their whole chain, their whole supply chain. So Trump has said he's against it. Trump has said he doesn't want to do it. But what's interesting is that regardless of what's going on in the Middle East, in the Strait of Hormuz, we're not just getting oil from Venezuela, right? Venezuela is now pumping at levels that at 2018 levels. So we're now getting 2018 levels of output from Venezuela, and that we're also the only economy that can really refine this oil, because the oil is there's so much crud in Venezuelan oil, but it's also very rich. It's very rich, so you get 3 times as much product from the crude than you do from like the stuff from Saudi Arabia or Iran. So we're actually in a really good situation, I think, long term, because we're just going to be getting oil from Venezuela and ourselves. By the way, we have a ton of oil here in the United States and in Canada. What's happening in the Middle East, this is kind of forcing us to put a firewall between us and the Middle East, because this is all good, I think, long term for our economy.
I agree. I think President Trump has been, destroying global institutions, across the entire globe over the since this term began, with OPEC now, NATO, of course, we've talked about a lot about NATO. The UN is in total disarray, the World Health Organization. All of these entities have had, tremendous influence over our economies, over our lives as sovereign U.S. citizens. And, you're seeing basically the destruction of these institutions right now. And did you have something else you wanted to pull up? Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So this is from May 1st. So this is from like 2 weeks ago, but Venezuela oil exports hit 7-year high. Venezuela's oil exports rose to 1.23 million barrels per day in April, the highest level since 2018, as shipments to the United States, India, and Europe accelerated. Exports climbed 14% from March levels, according to shipping data and PDVSA documents, with 66 cargoes leaving Venezuelan ports during the month. That compares with 61 vessels in March carrying about 1.08 million BPD since the January capture of Nicolas Maduro and the installation of an interim government. Washington has eased sanctions and taken control of Venezuelan oil sales. That shift has reopened access for trading houses and joint venture partners, including Chevron, to move barrels into U.S., European, and Asian markets. The result is a rapid drawdown of inventories alongside a gradual recovery in output. Flows to the United States are rising again, with Chevron already importing Venezuelan crude into Gulf Coast refineries designed to process heavy barrels. India is also increasing its take, adding another outlet for volumes that had been stranded under sanctions. So this is interesting. And I saw that they say installed a new government. They didn't install a new government. Maduro just stepped aside, and his government just kept running as it already was. But I saw that our girl Rodriguez, right? Rodriguez is in Europe for a hearing on the right here Essequibo. This is from May 10th, just 2 days ago. Venezuelan interim president arrives in Netherlands for Essequibo region hearing. Venezuelan interim president Delcy Rodriguez has arrived in the Netherlands for a hearing at the International Court of Justice over the Essequibo region, according to a press release from the presidential office. Rodriguez will lead a Venezuela team that will participate in a hearing on Monday at the principal judicial organ of the United Nations on a century-old dispute between Venezuela and its neighbor Guyana, centered around a region that is rich in oil, the press release said. Guyana brought the dispute to the court in 2018. A final judgment in the case is months away. Rulings are binding and without appeal, but the court has no way to enforce them itself, instead relying on the UN Security Council. This is Rodriguez's first trip to Europe since she took power after the United States captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, etc. And that's an interesting point right here. Guyana brought the dispute to court in 2018. Well, what else happened in 2018? Well, that was when Maduro in March of 2018 brought all those lawsuits against the oil companies, against the oil executives, right? Because they were embezzling, stealing, and laundering all that money from PDVSA. And then all of a sudden, Guyana is now filing a suit in the ICJ saying, "Hey, this eastern part of Venezuela that's been, it's like Venezuela / Guyana. This is actually ours, and if it gets awarded to Guyana, that means all the oil and the water off the coast of Venezuela is actually Guyana." And the reason that they want that is because ExxonMobil
shifted to Guyana.
Yeah, ExxonMobil shifted to Guyana after they left because they refused to negotiate with Hugo Chavez. And so now actually I saw that Trump is courting Exxon and ConocoPhillips to return to Venezuela. Let me pull that story up. So he threatened to block them back in January. But the most recent news is he's trying to court them back. And I'm sorry, that tab is not there. Yeah, if you would fill the air for a second, let me grab this.
Sure. So, we saw last week, we had the story about OPEC, about the UAE exiting OPEC, and how when you move from the cartel that's state run like OPEC, where the state is determining output and everything else like that, and being able to limit output to, influence the price per barrel. If we do introduce somehow, an American backed system where it is the United States, Venezuela, Canada, Mexico, some of the other states that have oil production in the Western Hemisphere, there's going to be laws. We have U.S. laws against that type of influence over price manipulation and price control. And so, this idea that these refineries can't operate when price per barrel drops, I think it's like 65 right now. If it drops below 65, they're somehow not profitable. I personally think that that's pretty absurd. But again, I'm not an oil expert. But at the same time, the ability to manipulate price and just, if something's going on here, we're going to jump that price up to $110 per barrel. And now all of a sudden you're paying $6 at the pump. That's absolutely, absurd. When there's other avenues to fill this gap that OPEC is not able to fulfill for whatever the reason be. So I think we're kind of seeing the light being shown on the cartel, just like, we're shining it on NATO and their inadequacies, the UN and the globalism there. You're shining it on the cartel that is OPEC as well, which, I mean, publicly, even the media outlets call it a cartel.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Last night on the Book of Trump, I had Jordan Sather on, and we talked about the Rockefellers. And one of the things we discussed is how John Rockefeller, the original Rockefeller, built their empire, right? And what he did is he realized in like the 1870s, when oil was basically only used like in oil lamps, like it wasn't used in any other way. They were only beginning to refine it. So then he went out and hired all these chemical engineers and scientists, and he realized that there was tremendous risk in going out and drilling for oil. Like he didn't want to be involved in that because there were too many failures, too much risk, too much downside. So he let everyone else go out and do that. And so instead, he went to the successful people who were finding oil and just offered to buy it from them, right? And so he focused on refinement as opposed to extraction. And basically that made him the gatekeeper. And so what happened is he acquired so much oil that he was able to intentionally crash the price of oil, which he did. He intentionally crashed the price of oil to historically low levels. And then he invited all of his competitors to his office. He opened up his books and he said, "These are my books. Here's how my company is running. I can afford to operate at a loss for years and put all of you out of business. And we can all together go out of business, or I can buy all of you out, give you a huge payday. You will be some of the richest men in the world. And then you come work for me as my executive and have a great life. Which one do you want?" And guess what they all chose. And that's how he built Standard Oil. That's how Standard Oil became Standard Oil. It was broken up in 1911. And by the way, when it was broken up, it was turned into a holding company. So its stock was then split up into like the Rockefellers then owned stock in every single company it became, which is Aramco, Amoco, BP, ExxonMobil, like Chevron. They all came from Standard Oil. And then so the Rockefellers got even richer when the government broke up Standard Oil in 1911. So this is not like what you're describing right there. This is exactly how the Rockefellers got rich, and it's how they consolidated all their power, was intentionally crashing the price of oil.
Well, now they have the globalist left and the Democrats here in the United States. If you go back to late in Obama's term, early in Trump's term, when the fracking kind of revolution was going on, gas was the price per barrel dropped around $35 or $40 per barrel. So that whole, it's got to be at least 55 or 60 or whatever the case might be for them to turn a profit. I mean, sure, maybe. But it had been that low before, and that's when we were seeing the gas, at around $1.80. I don't know, man. This whole thing, it's a lot to unpack, but again, there is manipulation. When you go back and look, like we're doing on book club, The Creature from Jekyll Island, right? Yep. When you see the way they're able to manipulate markets, and not only manipulate markets, but manipulate the public's mindset that they're the problem here, and that they're not. The problem isn't the corporations and the entities and the market itself. The problem is the consumer. The problem is in our case, the American people, and we're the reason that we need to be willing to pay these $4 for gas prices, because otherwise the oil companies go out of business and then we'll have no oil. They do the same thing with banks, right? If you don't bail out the banks and the banks don't get this bailout, then you're not going to have any banking, which I'm okay with now, like hashtag Bitcoin. But it's been like a huge psyop, man. And just go back and look historically when oil was in the high 30s, low 40s per barrel during the fracking revolution. And what did they do? They came out and told us fracking's so dangerous and we got to stop fracking. We can't be fracking. And why? Because then we put our dependency back on OPEC and traditional methods that they're using over there in the Middle East. So
yeah. And speaking of fracking, I covered this on my show over the past year. I think we even talked about it on this show. But the Saudis, working with the Chinese at the Saudi University in Riyadh, like 5 years ago, started developing a process, and they've now proven that it works. Through the fracking process, because fracking is basically like shooting salt water down into the ground and basically trying to break up rock and extract oil from it. And so there's a bunch of water oil mixture that comes as a byproduct of it. And, it's like, what do you do with it? Well, the Saudis figured out if you run it through this machine that they invented, you can actually extract lithium from it. And they had Aramco went and did the Saudi state oil company went and did a pilot test on it, and they extracted enough lithium that it was actually very valuable. And then so now every single oil company has now come to them and said, hey, we want to try this too. So now all the oil companies have their own pilot programs. And that means, lithium is a major metal that you need in the production of like high technology. So the Saudis have figured out how to take the fracking process and then extract basically what's called white gold lithium from the fracking process. So, this is how the golden age happens. It's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of like innovation, but when the incentive is right and the markets allow it, it can definitely take off. But it's going to be a transition, and we're transitioning into it right now. I personally think the way forward is easing regulations, lifting regulations, which all the oil companies are going to fight against because they don't want competition, bringing more competition into the markets. That's how you drive price down. So I think that's the way forward, is lifting regulations, not increasing regulations by banning exports. But we'll see what happens.
Heck yeah. Speaking of breaking up global organizations, let's jump into this interview. I was telling you about it before the show, and this is an interview with Finnish President or Prime Minister Alexander Stubb. They call him president here. I'm pretty sure he's a prime minister, or he was prime minister, so he is the president now. Okay. Europe talked to Putin, US and the US, us and the US. And so again, this is translated from Italian, so there might be some like crossover here, but I want to read some highlights from this. So the article starts: President Stubb, now that Europe has fully assumed the financial and military weight of support for Kyiv, should it not also launch a diplomatic initiative opening a channel for dialogue with Moscow and seeking to propose a plan that is not in the punitive terms desired by Putin and indulged by Trump's envoys? Now, isn't that rich right there, Ghost? She's saying now that we have to pay for all this Kyiv thing because America's essentially all but out of this, maybe it's time we do start the diplomatic thing, because, this is going to get pretty expensive for us. The U.S., they could have paid for it, but now it's all on the EU and the non-U.S. NATO countries. Yeah, maybe we should try and talk to Putin. I thought that was so rich to start the interview with that. And he responds, there are three possible scenarios. The war continues. A truce is reached, and then a peace agreement is reached. One side collapses, probably Russia. I believe the hypothesis of a peace is not on the table for at least for this year. If American policy towards Russia and Ukraine is not in Europe's interest, as I believe is the case, then we must engage directly. Yes, it's time to start talking to Russia. When this will happen, I don't know. That was interesting right there.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. Is there more? I didn't
Oh,
know.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Keep going.
This was a fascinating interview. So Stubb said there's an alarm in Europe, or no, they asked President Stubb, there is an alarm in Europe. The scenario of a complete U.S. withdrawal is no longer unrealistic. Would we Europeans be able to defend ourselves against a once again aggressive Russia? Mark Rutte, NATO Secretary General, says no. You've said yes several times. How? He says, first observation, we need to calm down and lower the temperature. Much of foreign policy at this stage is done in public on social media. While sometimes it is better to discuss the most difficult issues in a confidential way and then communicate them strategically. He goes on to say the United States will not withdraw from Europe. And do you know why? If they want to project their power into regions like the Middle East, Asia, Africa, they must have a solid foundation here. American troops are not are not in Europe to protect us, but to enable America to be a global power. But there's no doubt that Europe must take on more responsibility. Finland has been in NATO for 3 years and 4 months, and our defensive posture has always been structured to defend ourselves from Russia. My answer is, if we can defend ourselves, NATO can too. Now, isn't that rich? This guy, it's like he didn't read the national security assessment that President Trump put out like 5 or 6 months ago about the multipolar spheres of influence, and basically saying that we need our bases in Europe if we want to project power anywhere else, especially the Middle East and Asia. And the only thing while I was reading that, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, during Trump's second term, it seems we're a hell of a lot more friendly with the Middle East than we are with the EU.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I think we're going to see happen is we're going to see a lot of our partnerships shift to the Middle East. Trump's clearly in a war with the European elite. Like that is obvious. The European elite are parasitic, and they are a huge blight rather on the world. They are causing all kinds of problems. They're the ones that are forcing us into this ridiculous war with Russia, which frankly, in some ways is necessary because of what has been allowed to metastasize in Kiev and Ukraine. All that needs to be dealt with. But this was all creation of the people who would later create the EU in 1993. This all goes back to World War II.
I do want to, I got some more that I want to cover on this, but I do want to real quick. I did a surface level on Alexander Stubb and who he is, the Finnish president, previously the prime minister. He has an interesting past. He is, obviously from Finland, but then he was educated in America. He went to high school in Daytona Beach, Florida. He ended up getting a golf scholarship to, I think it's Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina. He played golf there and had aspirations to turn pro and play pro golf here in the United States, but instead got into politics at the push of a guy named Brent Nelson, who was appointed by Nikki Haley as, something to do in South Carolina when she was governor, something to do with public broadcasting, and then went on to be in the Obama administration, was appointed in the Obama administration to the global USAGM. I think it's the U.S. global media apparatus. And so his mentor and the guy that talked him out of playing professional golf to go into politics, which, by the way, I'll take golf 10 times out of 10.
Yeah. What? Why would you choose politics over professional golf if you could actually play?
And you could do the latter after you're done with the golf.
Yeah.
Go
seriously.
play golf, be a star, make big bucks, get to play all the best courses and everything else, then get into politics. But no, he went straight into politics.
He was being groomed, obviously.
Exactly. That's the point I was getting at. And so, he carries that same path. Now, again, this doesn't necessarily mean that he went over to Finland to overthrow Finland and, whatever, but you got to keep that in mind that there is that, that Western educated mindset when he's over there ruling over Finland now. And when you look at these color revolutions in Eastern Europe, that is kind of the modus operandi, is that the people that take them over, Saakashvili, the Georgian that, basically couped Georgia and then goes on to become the governor of Odessa, Ukraine. Again, another, Western educated individual. So just keep that in mind as we go through the rest of what he says here. He's asked, many wonder whether NATO still exists as a credible deterrent. Many hypotheses are made about how Europe should defend itself. Strategic autonomy, European NATO, the vanguard of willing countries. What does she think? And he responds, if you want a division of labor, each country is responsible for its own defense. NATO for collective defense. Article 5 to be clear. Meaning Article 5 to be clear, the European Union is responsible for funding and making it possible for European NATO countries to strengthen their capabilities. The Ankara summit will result in a renewed commitment to reach that 5% defense spending and a more European and stronger NATO. Again, this is casting the shadow that the America is on its way out of NATO. And Trump, to be fair, set him up. He said, you guys got to get to the 5% spending. If you get to the 5% spending, then we can talk. But, it's like he's telling them that because one day we're not going to be there to hold their hands as they go through life. And what do we do with Article 47.2 of the Treaty of NATO, which provides for collective defense in the EU? And he responds, we must not expect the U.S. to withdraw. We must not push it to do so. It is in no one's interest. We should get to a 50-50 in the division of the burden. NATO deterrence is based on conventional forces, missiles, and nuclear umbrella. I don't see the Americans withdrawing the latter because Russian nuclear weapons are aimed at New York and Washington. Again, is anybody here, is there genuinely anybody that's afraid of a nuclear weapon hitting America from Russia?
No, from Russia, absolutely not. I mean, from anywhere, pretty much no, but from Russia, absolutely not. Russia's not going to nuke us, and they have no reason to.
If you had a list and you put legitimate state attacking the U.S. with nukes, it would probably be second to last on my list of things that I'm worried about, behind an infestation of zombies. In fact, zombies would probably be above.
Yeah, that would be higher, I think, than Russia nuking us for me.
Yeah, I think zombies are actually higher up. Good point. Good point.
Yeah. Is there more?
Yeah, there's one last thing. So she asked, do you think President Trump's presidency poses a danger to American democracy? And this is what sparked me to look into this guy's past. And because when I read this, I was like, holy shit, this sounds like every other Victoria Nuland color revolutionist that's ever ruled in Europe. He says, it worries me that America is a very polarized country. The language and rhetoric used are incendiary. And someone who is very pro-American tells him so. I studied in the United States. I studied the American Constitution. I read almost all the Federalist Papers, and I'm a staunch supporter of the separation of powers and the checks and balances. Of course, I'm concerned when I see political pressure on the Federal Reserve or the Supreme Court. But American democracy is working. The judges, the courts are doing their job. The foundations of a democracy are freedom and the rule of law. When one of these is under discussion, there is a problem. We must also remember that democracy is a very young form of government in human history, the most successful, but it's complicated and you have to work on it every day. I am a leader. If a leader like me starts challenging media freedom, that's a flaw in democracy. If I make decisions outside the legal framework, it's a challenge to democracy. Someone must be able to control my power. And when I read that, I was like, okay, this guy's been groomed. This guy is put there to believe in the institutions, even though we have a captured media that is completely beholden to, the intelligence community via Project Mockingbird, et cetera. I just read that and I was like, okay, this guy is saying all the things that the U.S. globalists want him to say, while at the same time kind of placating to Trump a little bit there.
Yeah. And so, again, this is a lot of it's just speculation, but the strategy seems to be to create the incentive structures in the marketplace, in the world, for people acting in their own best interest, in the best interest of their country, to basically do the things that you and I and the audience, I'm sure, would recognize as the things that need to happen in order to fix the problems of the world, right? Like breaking up NATO would be one of them. And so to that point, here is the French presidential candidate. This is from this weekend, I think. Melicon, and he says France will leave NATO. NATO serves only one purpose: to place us under the tutelage of the United States. Keeping our distance from NATO is France's historic line. We drove the American bases out of our country. And so he's basically saying that Russia's not the problem. The United States is the problem. And we need to get rid of the United States, like from our sphere of influence, from the influence over our country. So we need to leave NATO. France needs to leave NATO in order to do that. I think we talked about it last week, but Britain is now moving to create a navy with the Scandinavian states. They want to create a navy that exists, like an international navy that exists outside of NATO, so NATO wouldn't have any control over it. They want to keep fighting Russia, but that's fine. That's not with us. You know what? If you want to go fight Russia, God bless you. Have fun. And then I posted this back in January, but here is a French MP in I think this is in the European Union, the European Parliament. But she says exit from NATO. No, I'm sorry. This is from the French Parliament. But she says they held a debate back in January to leave NATO. So this is not like this guy saying this, and this was led by this woman. This guy saying this he's not like a sole voice in the crowd. There are a lot of French politicians who think it's in their best interest because of Trump derangement syndrome is driving a lot of it, by the way. So he's creating the incentive structure. Like instead of us coming in and just saying we're going to break up NATO, he's creating the incentive for the Europeans to decide on their own. We're going to leave NATO, which means NATO won't exist. I mean, without France, without Britain, without the United States, without Germany, there is no NATO. I mean, Germany and the United States are probably the two most important. But yeah, this is good signal, I think.
Well, France is pretty important because allegedly they have nukes. But,
yeah.
And so does Britain, but
so does Britain. But I should have played this earlier. I don't know if you've seen this video. Because you mentioned reading the Creature on Jekyll Island, and I told everyone last night that they should go watch y'all's show.
Good, it's so good.
Yeah, because obviously, like the Rockefellers and J.P. Morgan, who were all working together, they had a big part in that. I mean, they were the ones who did it.
Yeah,
but,
and we are reading the entire book. So if you don't have the book, you can tune in, and we're reading it and giving commentary as we go through it. And that's Thursday afternoons at 2 p.m.
Yeah, so listen to Trump here.
Talk about how historic these tariffs have been, bringing revenue, additional revenue for our country. You've also mentioned before they could possibly replace federal income tax.
Possible.
Do you think that
someday it's possible? It used to be. So if you go back to 1913 is when they ended tariffs. We were the richest ever from 1850. It was all tariffs. We didn't have income taxes. From 1850 to 1913. In the 1887s, about 1887, they had the Great National Tariff Act. And it was a group of people that got together because our country was so rich, they didn't know what to do with the money. We had so much money, they didn't know what to do. It was a group of very prominent people that were set up to hand out money to everybody. Because we were the richest we ever were. Proportionately, we were in 1887, around that time, even in 1913, we ended them in 1913. How did that work out? And then we went to the income tax system, and then we had the Depression. Wow. And by the way, a lot of people try and say that, tariffs with the Depression. No, they ended in 1913, and then we went to income tax, and then in 1929, you had the Depression. They did try and bring it back in 1931-32, but the Depression had long started, and this poor, beautiful nation was gone. It was gone. We suffered for 25 years. It took 25, 30 years to really recover from the Depression. And we don't ever want to see that happen again. The tariffs are vital to the success of this country. When I say I ended 7 wars, at least half of those wars were ended because of the power of tariffs. I was able to.
Love when Trump gives history lessons.
You know what's so fascinating about that? So on Alphas Make Sandwiches, Ash was doing a history review a while back of Woodrow Wilson, and I said that 1912. I mean, we've talked about this on the show. It's one of the most critical times in this country in terms of the predicament that we're in now. The Federal Reserve, the 16th and 17th Amendments, the Titanic being sunk, and the people that did not get aboard that ship, and the people that were on that ship. But going back, what President Trump references right there with 1887, you know who was president in 1887? Grover Cleveland. Do you know? Do you know what Grover Cleveland has in common with President Trump? They're the only two presidents to have split terms.
Interesting. Yeah, that's true.
And so 1887 was Cleveland's first term. So it's almost as if we had so much money that they're asking what to do with the money. Trump is alluding to this by mentioning Cleveland's first term. And you're saying that that guy doesn't get elected to a second term. And oh, by the way, Grover Cleveland had another thing in common with President Trump in terms of elections. He got more votes in his second election as an incumbent than he did in his first term. And Trump and Cleveland are the only presidents ever to get more votes in their second election than they did in their first and lose. They're the only two presidents in U.S. history to do it. They're also the only two presidents in U.S. history to have split terms. And then, you know, Trump's is alluding to that as he's talking about the Federal Reserve and possibly getting rid of income tax. Fascinating right there.
Yeah, and you know, the guy who really pushed for the tariffs was William McKinley, who became president in 1897, so 10 years later. And then he was assassinated in 1901, and in 1901 is when J.P. Morgan created U.S. Steel, which was the parent company, the holding company that's consolidated all the steel companies under one roof. And then we just saw that sold to the Japanese back in January.
And so, you know, going back to the point I was making, you brought up McKinley there, and I know a lot of it was you know, party to the tariffs, right? He was a big an instrumental part of that. But, you know, following McKinley, we end up getting William Howard Taft. Mm-hmm. And Taft was the president up until Woodrow Wilson. Now, Taft was avidly opposed to a Federal Reserve. He was opposed to a central bank. And Taft ran for president in 1912 against Woodrow Wilson. But Taft would have won handedly if it wasn't for another person entering the race under the Bull Moose Party, and that was Theodore Roosevelt, who would end up becoming president later on, and also just happens to now be on Mount Rushmore. So let's put Trump right up there on Rushmore, and let's direct him so that he's giving a scornful look right at Teddy Roosevelt for all of U.S. history, for the rest of U.S. history. Put Trump up there. I don't care if you have to redo the hair. I know the hair's got him going a certain direction. I want Trump up there staring at Teddy Roosevelt.
Just giving him a stink eye.
Stink eye all the way.
Yeah. So let's look at this story. Where did that story go? Sorry, I just had it pulled up right here.
All right, I do want to get into the Netanyahu thing because I know you got to go here soon.
Yeah. Let's get into Netanyahu, but we have right here, world oil reserves drain at record pace. Bloomberg, disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz are pushing global inventories toward operational stress and floor levels. The outlet has reported global oil inventories are shrinking at the fastest pace on record amid continuing disruptions at the Strait of Hormuz. Bloomberg has reported. The outlet cited data from Morgan Stanley on Saturday showing the global oil stockpiles fell by about 4.8 million barrels per day between March 1st and April 25th. The figure surpasses previous inventory drawdown records tracked by the International Energy Agency, it added. And so then we have, on the heels of that, this story from the Financial Times. Oil majors return to Alaska as state becomes world's hottest play. Exxon and Shell among those resuming Arctic exploration at Trump's drill baby drill era. Some of the world's biggest oil companies are returning to explore in the Alaskan Arctic as they seek to replenish reserves, diversify their portfolios, and capitalize on Donald Trump's promotion of fossil fuel drilling. ExxonMobil, Shell, and Repsol are among producers that bid a record $163 million in March to secure leases in the National Petroleum Reserve of Alaska, an underexplored area estimated by the U.S. Geological Survey to hold 8.8 million barrels of recoverable oil. ConocoPhillips and Australia's Santos also bid on leases covering more than 1 million acres on Alaska's North Slope, an oil-rich but often ice-bound region of pristine wilderness where it is costly to operate. So now that the strategic reserve, the world's reserves are being drained, Trump's draining them, right, by clogging up the Strait of Hormuz. These oil companies are now incentivized to go to places where they weren't drilling for oil before, like Alaska, which happens to be American soil. So, you know, you can see the game theory unfolding here. It takes a little time, but it's happening. All right, let's talk about Netanyahu.
All right, so let's jump into this clip of Netanyahu on, I think it was on 60 Minutes over the weekend.
Do you believe it's time for the state of Israel to re-examine and possibly reset its financial relationship to the United States, meaning what the United States provides to Israel on an annual basis?
Absolutely. And I've said this to President Trump. I've said it to our own people. Their jaws dropped. But I said, look.
What do you mean? What are you saying?
I want to draw down to zero the American financial support, the financial component of the military cooperation that we have, because we receive $3.8 billion a year. And I think that it's time that we weaned ourselves from the remaining military support.
Can you give me a timetable?
I said, let's start now and do it over the next decade, over the next 10 years. But I want to start now. I don't want to wait for the next Congress. I want to start now. It could go down very fast.
All right. So, Ghost, that's a very interesting thing for Bibi Netanyahu to say. What's your take?
Yes, this is something that's been discussed for a while now. I mean, Laura Loomer has been pushing this for months, and this really exploded as an idea right after everyone started talking about America using its leverage, its financial leverage, its military leverage over Israel to stop the Greater Israel Project. That's the point here. I think the purpose here is the amount of money that we're giving, in their eyes, the amount of money that we're giving them is not worth, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Exactly. $3 billion a year is not worth the U.S. having leverage over them to stop them from what they want to do. And what they want to do is they want to expand the borders of Israel. And to that point, here is Bezalel Smotrich over the weekend appearing on Israeli 103, something like that, some Israeli outlet. And there's a video, but I'll just read you the quote. He just says that this war must end with changing the borders of the state of Israel in Gaza and Lebanon and Syria, and of course in the West Bank. If it were up to me, we would have annexed the territory a long time ago. So that is the play, and that's what they're going for. And they understand at this point that the Overton window in America is shifting against them, and their window to do this, their opportunity to do this, is closing. So therefore, they have to move quickly, which is what they're trying to do. And these are the zealots, again, that Netanyahu has been forced to put into power. Because you brought up the 60-minute clip, I just want to play this clip. This is by the way, Netanyahu opened that interview by saying the war in Iran is not over. We have to go get the uranium out of Iran. And I've heard rumors that Iran is open to that. They're open to Russia being given the enriched uranium. I suspect that's probably what will end up happening. And I suspect that for Israel will not be okay with that. But let's listen to what Netanyahu says here.
I came to the United States in 2016, right before the elections. Because I made it a habit to meet with the candidates of both parties, either in America or here.
Of course you did.
I go to 2016, it's right before the elections, and I meet with Hillary Clinton, and then I meet with Donald Trump in New York. The first thing he says to me in Trump Tower is, we can't let Iran have nuclear weapons. I'm going to walk out of that terrible Iran deal. Jump forward 8 years later, there's another election. I meet President Biden and Kamala Harris in Washington. And then I go and meet Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago. And the first thing he says to me, even before I sit down, he says, Bibi, we cannot let Iran have nuclear weapons. I'm not going to let it happen. So he's infused with this mission.
Isn't that interesting? So he didn't mention 2020. He did not mention 2020. So Trump didn't make that comment to him in 2020. Before I even sat down, like, he walks into Trump's office and Trump just starts talking to him and says, we can't allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, right.
But, yeah. But in 2020, that conversation didn't happen. And oh yeah, by the way, the person who consummated the Biden coup was Netanyahu. He was the first person to call Biden and congratulate him on defeating Trump. I find this very interesting. This is, again, I think, game theory. Right, Trump. I think this is how Trump convinced the Israel lobby to back him. Is that he told him, he's like, yeah, I'll go after Iran. Like, it's fine. We'll go in there and we'll get the we'll get the uranium. We'll do what we got to do. We'll blow up those nuclear facilities. So I think that's the game theory here. Do you have anything else on the 60 Minutes?
No, not in the 60 Minutes. The only thing I got left is the UAE and Iran.
Okay. So real quick, Netanyahu is defending his pick for the Mossad chief. So the Mossad chief serves every 5 years. There's a turnover, 5-year terms. So the last one, David Barnea, started, I believe it was 2021. So he's coming up now this year. And this new guy, Roman Goffman, is a controversial pick. David Barnea, the current Mossad director, who was, by the way, the point man on the Soleimani file. So he was I think he was Soleimani's handler. He's the one who picked up the phone and called Trump the night before the Soleimani strike in 2020, before he was Mossad director, and told the White House that we're out. We're not gonna help you. But he's opposing this guy's appointment because he says that in 2022, this guy recruited like a child in Israel to be like an asset, which is against their protocol, their procedure. So this guy basically colors outside the lines, and Mossad would never do that. Yeah. So they're like all of Netanyahu's opposition now are rallying around that. We have Zamir. This is the IDF chief, right? He's already come out previously and said this, but he came back 2 days ago and reminding everyone. He went and met in the Knesset and gave a speech and said, hey guys, the military is literally about to collapse unless you pass a law conscripting all these ultra-Orthodox men, right, who have always had this exemption. If you don't bring them into the IDF like today, the IDF's going to collapse. So you need to do this right now, like pass this law, and let us go after them and drag them out of their houses and get them to serve. And that, of course, has led to Haredi spiritual leader gives the green light for the Deagle HaTorah to dissolve the Knesset over the draft law. So now the ultra-Orthodox, in response to this, are now going to dissolve the Knesset. And if they dissolve the Knesset, that means that Netanyahu and his, Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir are out of power. And now this is something this is Damocles' sword that's been hanging over Netanyahu's head for years now. And we've gotten to, last summer, right before the Iran war, we had the same thing happen where they were about to dissolve the Knesset. So what's going to happen? Well, I think we're going to see the resumption of the Iran war. Like, all of the pieces are falling into place now, because Netanyahu's only play now is to full bore start a war with Iran, like start bombing the crap out of Iran, and restart the war, because that's the only thing that's going to get all these people back behind him again. Meanwhile, Trump, of course, has been looking for the off-ramp, right, to leave the Iran war. So game theory, I think we're going to see Israel and Iran fight each other, and without the U.S. involved, hopefully.
Well, so did you see the Wall Street Journal article from yesterday?
Which one?
Right here. The UAE has been secretly carrying out attacks on Iran.
Yep.
And so this, I obviously this isn't going to do much for Israel to re-engage Iran, but it might influence the United States re-engaging Iran if Iran is to, if there's an escalation between the UAE and Iran, the United States could intervene on behalf of the UAE and push that war and drive that war even further. Secretly carrying out attacks? What?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is there's this whole narrative about the UAE. And I mean, there seems to be a rift between the UAE and Saudi Arabia. I don't know if we talked about it on this show last week, but I was talking about it on my shows. I think it reminds me a lot of the rift between Qatar and Saudi Arabia in 2017, where Qatar declared war on them and was at war with them for 4 years, basically throughout Trump's entire term, and then signed a peace treaty with them 5 days before Trump left office. But I think the net effect of that conflict was the good twin in Qatar got more power, and the bad twin in Qatar got less power. And I think there's a similar thing happening with the UAE. We've seen there. I covered last week. There were bank runs on the UAE. Like hundreds of billions of dollars have left the banks in the UAE. The real estate market has collapsed. There's a lot of financial pressure on the UAE, and you'll remember that Gustavo Petro, the Colombian president, went and met with Trump in February and said, hey, if you're going to go to war with the cartels, it's great to go get the guys in the jungles who are making the cocaine, but you got to go after the bankers in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. That's what he told him, right? So this is what I think. I think we're watching that happen in real time right now. We're watching the banks in the UAE get squeezed because now the UAE is turning to the United States and saying, hey, we need a credit swap. Basically meaning when we do a currency exchange, there's no upcharge. Like we can do it for free. I think there's 4 or 5 countries that we do that with. It's a very prestigious arrangement. I think it's France, the United States, or it's France, the United Kingdom, and a few others. They have that distinction where when we do currency exchanges, there's no upcharge. And so now the UAE is begging for that. They're begging for a credit swap. And Trump was asked, "Are you going to do it?" And he said, "Yeah, I might." Like they're a good partner, so I think they're being squeezed financially, the UAE. And then I'll show you this article. This is a really, really good, well-written op-ed. The title of it from Arab News: "This is how Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman succeeded." Prince Turki Al Faisal. So this is the son of King Faisal, the guy who met secretly with JFK in 1961, who then became king right after JFK was assassinated, implemented all the advice that JFK gave to him, to make the Saudi people great. That was the advice that he gave him. And then Turki Al Faisal was deeply involved in Saudi intelligence, resigned from Saudi intelligence a week before 9/11. And basically has been like the voice of reason throughout MBS's entire tenure as Crown Prince. When October 7th happened, the Saudis were completely silent, which is typical for them. They play things close to the chest for like a month. Like they didn't make any public statements. When they finally did make a public statement, it was Turki Al Faisal who was sent out to address the public for the first time. So this guy is obviously very close to MBS and very important to him. I think MBS is like the spiritual successor of King Faisal, the same way that President Trump is the spiritual successor of JFK. But what he explains in this article is he explains everybody wanted Saudi Arabia to pick up the sword and fight Israel. That's what they wanted us to do after October 7th. And MBS had the wisdom to sit back and not do that. And because he didn't do that, Saudi Arabia is now in the position that it's in, where we are not, we haven't been sucked into this terrible war. We haven't started World War III, right? And now we actually, throughout the Biden administration, we were able to sign all these bilateral deals with all these countries around the world and establish influence and have financial entanglement. And now we're in a very strong position to resolve the situation that's happening right now in a positive way. And it's all because MBS had the wisdom, the patience, and the strength to take all the criticism that he's taking and not pick up the sword and fight Israel.
Heck yeah. All right, Ghost, I know you got to get out of here. Appreciate you being here in your geopolitical segments, as always. And where can folks find you next?
Yep, I will be this afternoon, Geopolitics with Ghost, 2:00 on this network. And then The Choice on Thursday with Ash at noon. I will be traveling this weekend, so there will be no Geopolitics with Ghost on Friday and no Book of Trump on Monday. So I'll be back here with you next Tuesday. And apologize that gotta run, but got a situation with the kids I gotta go address. So
all right, take care, brother.
All right. Y'all have a good day.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and hit a sponsor real quick before we get going, and we'll get into the domestic stories of the day. Guys, quick question. How much control do you actually have over your money right now? Technology has changed everything, and now it's changing how money works. Crypto started as a niche, but now it's going mainstream. Faster payments, more control, fewer middlemen. It's not hype. It's just where things are going. And getting started today is easier than you think. That's where Rumble Wallet comes in. With Rumble Wallet, you can buy Bitcoin. You can hold dollar-backed stable coins. You can even own digital gold backed by real gold, all in one place. Setup is simple. It connects to MoonPay, so you can use your debit card, credit card, or bank account and be up and running in minutes. It's not about the amount. It's about getting in early and understanding what's coming next. And once you're set up, you can even tip your favorite Rumble creators like me directly. So do this now. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description and download Rumble Wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet, tap buy, and boom, you're in the game. Take control of your money and get started with Rumble Wallet today. All right. Okay, sorry. All right, let's get back into the news. Take a quick reset and smash that thumbs up if you have not done so yet. And this has kind of been the big, not story, but the big clip of the day. John Brennan on MS Now basically saying, yeah, we still got a deep state. They're in place. They're doing their job. We got the CIA. We got the DOJ. We got all these deep state actors in there. And it sounds like he's maybe freaking out a little bit.
Says these people are dirty. Todd Blanche says we're lucky to have Trump involved in this. Kash Patel says I have a bat phone into the Oval Office. He has succeeded largely in turning DOJ and the FBI into political arms of his political operation. What still exists in the system to slow that down?
I think, as Liz mentioned, there's still a legion of professionals in the law enforcement environment, Department of Justice, as well as the CIA and other places, the ones who are refusing to follow politically motivated prosecutions, those who are refusing to support any type of political activities on the part of the Trump administration that are inconsistent with the authorities, the responsibilities of the intelligence community, law enforcement community, and Department of Justice. So we have to rely on these individuals to stand up to their professional responsibilities, and also to the courts, to the judges, to those judges who in fact took an oath of allegiance to the law, not to a political party, not to a person. And, I'd like to think that there are still some members of Congress. Certainly, I'm looking for the Republicans who at one point had spoken out against Donald Trump and had spoken in support of the law, but they seem to have just totally caved. And I think, as has been said, what has happened to our institutions is really going to have longstanding damage to these institutions, to our system of justice.
Excuse me. So what Brennan's saying, they're alluding to all these, people that are still deeply embedded in our bureaucratic systems. I think a lot of this was a dog whistle because things haven't been going the way they're planning to. We're going to get a word from James Comey here in a minute, who's actually going to allude to this portion of the interview right here. But I mean, Brennan, I think we all expect Brennan to, at some point in the very, very near future, to be indicted, whether it's for, his relationship with Russiagate, whether it's for perjury and lying to Congress, whether it's for going all the way back to the Obama era. We saw this story pop up again today, the passport when he was at the analysis group or the analysis corporation, and the Obama, McCain, Clinton passport debacle that took place. There's a lot of stuff that Brennan could be investigated for. I think it's coming eventually. Again, it's one of those things where, I've expressed my reservations about the Comey indictment and what that's going to lead to. Could there be more to it? We're going to see a clip here in just a second that Comey is going to kind of deflect from the possibility of other evidence. But again, when the time comes to go after these people, you got to make sure it's an open and shut case, because there is going to be that resistance. There is going to be people inside of these institutions that are going to push back, and they haven't been rooted out yet. They haven't been cleaned out yet to the fullest, to the extent that we need them to be. And so seeing Brennan come out and kind of dog whistle to them like, hey, you guys got to make sure you're doing your job in there. And the Republicans in Congress, don't forget, we got the dirt on you too. I was the CIA director. I was station chief all over, but I was a director under Obama. And I know I've got the folders on all of you guys, and make sure you guys are doing your jobs. And then you got Comey coming in here talking about the same, talking about the indictment, but then alluding to, Brennan's interview right there.
Which is on Amazon right now for sale.
Yeah, I hate to stiff arm you, but I'm going to do the same thing. It's very important that we respect and obey the rules of the federal court in North Carolina and everywhere, even if others don't. And so I'm not going to talk about that, except to say, as I said earlier, I am not only not guilty, I am innocent, and we will pursue this fully.
The first time you were indicted, you released a video like that, and you, and I think you said it last time we were on this show, you talked about your faith in the independent judiciary. Do you think that is the only leg standing?
Yes, with the exception of something that John Brennan mentioned in your last segment, that there are good people holding the line.
With the exception of what John Brennan said, that there are good people holding the line. Another dog whistle. You got two dog whistles from Brennan and from Comey. Man, you know, the quote unquote deep state, the bureaucratic rot, the infestation, covering for each other, subverting the will of the president, subverting justice, you know, just us instead of justice. All of that stuff's got to come to head at some point. I still have tremendous faith. And I know a lot of people are weaning off this faith. I still have faith in Kash Patel. I have faith in the people that are investigating the weaponization, the elections, and all that stuff. I'm not going to go as far as saying I have all the faith in Todd Blanche, because that'd be, you know, kind of misguided. Not misguided, but just undereducated. I don't know enough about Todd Blanche other than he's been a staunch proponent of President Trump through the lawfare that he endured during the 4 years that he, quote unquote, wasn't president. So, you know, who knows where that's going to take us. But I do, just real quick, I want to go back. So there was this rehash yesterday over the Analysis Corporation. And this goes back to Obama in 2008 on his campaign when he was the quote unquote senator. And there was a breach into the passports data, and Obama, Clinton, and John McCain had their information taken. Now, there was a bunch of other people taken, but those were the three notable names that got a lot of attention. And, you know, I was digging around on that a little bit last night. And I think it was the Skiff that originally put it out. They used a clip from John and Zach. So that was pretty cool to see that. But check out this clip here from, I think this was CNN back in 2008 talking about this breach.
Well, 2 State Department workers have been fired. A third is disciplined for snooping into Barack Obama's passport file. Sabrina Fangs at the White House with more on that.
Obama's passport file was breached 3 times since January, but he wasn't notified until yesterday. It's unclear why the State Department waited so long or what those employees were looking for.
For now, the State Department says it appears inappropriate curiosity was behind the security breach of Barack Obama's passport file. 2 contract workers have been fired and a third has been disciplined.
It should have been known to senior management. It was not to my knowledge. And we also want to take every step that we can to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again.
Obama's file was broken into on January 9th, February 21st, and last Friday. His aides are furious about not being notified sooner, and they're demanding a full investigation. State Department officials are briefing the campaign today. The breaches were detected by a system put in place after a similar incident happened to Bill Clinton during his presidential run in 1992. Meanwhile, in Oregon today, Obama is getting a huge endorsement from...
Okay, so let's just pause there for just 1 second, because they don't tell the whole story there. The 2 contractors that were fired, I don't know who they worked for, but the contractor who was just disciplined and wasn't fired worked for the Analysis Corporation. And the Analysis Corporation is a deep state entity that, had access to this type of information. Kind of think the same way that, now we have access with Palantir and a lot of these other organizations. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but the same type of access. They had access to this, and they go in and they access, I think it was like 20,000 different passports, right? But 3 of them were McCain, Obama, and Clinton. And what they don't tell you is that the Analysis Corporation was owned by John Brennan. He was the CEO of the Analysis Corporation, John Brennan. He was also at the time on Obama's campaign. And so when you have that type of access, the 3 of those people accessed, and, Zach, in the clip that the Skiff shared on X, Zach is saying, there's this guy, Lieutenant, what was his name? Corliss something or other. And the lieutenant is kind of deceptive. He wasn't actually a lieutenant that's known. He wasn't police. He wasn't military. That's kind of like a name, I guess, or a nickname or something. But he was shot and killed a month after this story broke. And he was shot and killed in a church parking lot, and was alleged to have been cooperating with federal authorities about this breach. Now, he wasn't involved in the Obama, Clinton, McCain aspect of it, but he was involved in using this passport information to obtain fake credit cards and fake passport registrations, etc. And so when you're trying to cover up a crime, you take a large sum of data. We've talked about this before. Like, if you're going to cover something up, if you need to execute somebody, the best way to do it is a mass shooting. I know it sounds terrible, or a mass casualty event. It sounds terrible, but you take away the distraction from the individual target and you focus it on the overt action, the overall action that took place. And so, you look at the Buffalo shooting, right? The guy that, a lot of people say maybe he was the target because he had this engine that could run on water, the non-combustion or non-fossil fuel engine. And, so that kind of thing. We had the Epstein files, the guy who was in Mexico that had the U.S. ambassador that had childed a kid with an underage girl that he allegedly raped at a party. And the guy that's disclosing this to the investigator in New York, his nephew is murdered in a mass shooting in I think it was in Indiana at a Cracker Barrel, right? And he admits this in the middle of the investigation. Hey, I got to go back home. My nephew was killed in a mass shooting. He was the second person killed. This is how these things happen. And so you cover up an overt crime by masking it behind, oh, well, this guy was the one that stole the stuff and was, using it to get fake credit cards. Meanwhile, Brennan, who was former CIA at the time, goes on to become the CIA director, has passport data on Obama, the three main candidates, Obama, Clinton, and McCain. And does he choose Obama? I don't know. It's very interesting. Chanel Rion goes on to talk about Obama's missing years in the 1980s when Brennan and Zbigniew Brzezinski were both in Pakistan, and finding out that Obama also was in Pakistan. And President Trump, again, one of President Trump's big things was the birther, argument, the birth certificate, which I think we all know at this point, anybody with half a brain, that birth certificate is fake. Whether or not he's a U.S. citizen, I tend to think he's not, and I think most of you guys would agree. But one thing to know for sure is the birth certificate that is backed up on the White House archives is fake. I mean, there's no question about it. Anybody with basic Photoshop skills could tell you that. But what I thought was really interesting, and this is why I kind of wonder about this story here, and is this where they finally got the grips on him? A junior senator from Illinois, that's a 2-year senator that all of a sudden becomes president of the United States and wins like in a historic landslide. He has no background, in politics other than state Senate and the U.S. Senate for 2 years to justify this. But listen to what they say at the very end of this clip.
Another superdelegate. Despite his ties to the Clintons, Bill Richardson is backing Obama, which could help the Illinois senator secure Hispanic votes. The New Mexico governor and former presidential candidate says Obama is a once-in-a-lifetime leader who can restore America's moral leadership worldwide. As for Hillary Clinton, disappointing news from Michigan. Like Florida, plans for a revote have collapsed, triggering a fresh dispute over Michigan's 156 delegates. Obama is calling for an even split, but that's not sitting well with Clinton.
So again, I would call on Senator Obama to join me in supporting the rights of the people of Michigan and Florida to have their voices and their votes counted.
Now, Clinton is pushing for a mail-in primary, even though Obama has raised questions and concerns about securing mail-in ballots.
Well, that's fascinating. I don't remember that. I don't recall that from the 2016, the 2008 primaries. Probably because we didn't know as much about elections as we do now. Hillary's calling for an all mail-in primary, and Obama's like, yeah, that's probably not a great idea. I don't know. I thought that was pretty interesting. I wonder if Brennan, if they were able to assess, whatever data it was that they collected, and they decided, you know what, out of McCain, Hillary, and Obama's the one that we can grab and latch our fangs into the most. And then from there, I mean, there's no question in my mind that Obama is absolutely a purveyor of the deep state. He is, one of the main characters, one of the main actors in this. But was he in 2008? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they got their fangs in him, and over the course of a very short time, he became one of those main. A lot of people think he's a puppet. There's no question in my mind that the intelligence has more power over the president than any of us will ever believe. More power than we'll ever know. And, I don't know. I'm going to land that there because going off on a wild tangent here. So we'll land that segment right there. Speaking of the deep state, let's go ahead and play our newest soft disclosure ad from, well, it's featuring Zach Payne, and he's not deep state, but he's exposing it like nobody else. And I started this segment because of a clip I saw of him this morning. So let's go ahead and play this soft disclosure ad. Softdisclosure.com. This ad is a banger right here.
Today, we remember those who gave everything. And memory is never still.
This Memorial Day, one hero, one mission, to deliver softness to America.
No, Gigi, we can't stop your sex, dude. We have to deliver all of these soft disclosure gift cards.
He goes by Zach Payne.
The motion detector.
Hey, stop fighting over the beer brush.
Life finds a way.
Hydrate your elbows, moisturize your soul. Feel the rhythm together. Makes you feel alive and let the lotion roll. Soft disclosure, hear the cry. Maximum softness, do or die.
Muffin, hit it.
Oh my goodness. 1 minute and 50 seconds of mullet Zach Payne. Oh man, what an epic commercial. Softdisclosure.com. That's just fantastic. None of that's AI, by the way. That's all totally real. Zach has been filming this for the last, during his off time. He's been taking his teleportation device out to the desert and filming that. And it's all real. All real. Must be true. Okay. Let's keep moving here and jump into this story here. Department of Justice, Arcadia, California mayor, federally charged with acting as an illegal agent of the PRC, the People's Republic of China. The mayor of Arcadia, California, Eileen Wang, has been charged in federal court with acting as an illegal agent of the PRC. Wang has agreed to plead guilty to the felony count, which comes with a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison. According to her plea agreement, from late 2020 through 2022, so before she was even the mayor there, Wang and Yaoning Mike Sun worked at the direction and control of the PRC government officials and coordinated with U.S.-based individuals to promote the PRC's interest by, among other things, promoting pro-PRC propaganda in the United States. Sun is currently serving a 4-year federal prison sentence after he pled guilty in October of 2025. Wang and Sun worked together to operate U.S. News Center, a news source for the local Chinese American community. In June of 2021, a PRC official contacted Wang with pre-written news articles, including a PRC official written essay that was published in the LA Times that stated, quote, China's stance on the Xinjiang issue is that there is no genocide in Xinjiang. I think that's how you say that. No such thing as, quote unquote, forced labor in any production activity, including cotton production. Again, keep buying all that Chinese shit, guys. The cotton, the forced labor cotton production, or maybe it's not. They say it's propaganda. But what if they're actually telling the truth? What if it's our people through the Smith-Munt modernization? You want to go for a real mind bleep? There it is. That's the real mind bleep. What if they're only saying that to counter the Smith-Mundt Remodernization Act, where they're propagandizing us by saying what the end result is buy American, and I'm all about that. So I'll take the propaganda in America. But anyways, they say there's no such thing as genocide in Xinjiang. There's no such thing as forced labor in any production activity, including in cotton production. Wang posted the article on her own website and responded to the PRC official with a link. The PRC official responded, "Man, so fast. Thank you, everyone." Then in November of 2021, Wang communicated with John Chen, a high-level member of the PRC intelligence apparatus. Wang asked Chen to post a quote-unquote news article from her website and wrote, quote, "This is what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs wants to send." Chen was sentenced in November of 2024 to 20 months in federal prison for acting as an illegal agent of the PRC and conspiracy to bribe a public official. And then, there's all sorts of these cases all over the place. Former high-ranking New York State government employee as a undisclosed agent of the PRC. And it goes back to, you remember Mike Pompeo in the 2020, prior to the 2020 election. Brian's discombobulated. No, I'm just saying we get propagandized. And so what if China is like, hey, we need to put out propaganda to combat the propaganda that you're given by the propaganda that they're given. And I'll take the American propaganda that convinces us to buy American goods over the Chinese. But at the same time, I mean, everybody's propagandized. All of it's propaganda. You just got to choose the propaganda that most fits you best. I don't know. But you remember when Mike Pompeo came out and was like, yeah, there's like Chinese spies, or they put out the list of governors that are favorable to China and the list of governors that are not favorable. And then he goes off and he's addressing the board of governors, which is strange for the Secretary of State to be doing. And he's saying that you probably have spies in your own administration. Of course, we know about Fang and Swalwell. Fang was also influencing mayors in the Midwest. That's kind of in line with actually becoming a mayor in Arcadia, California. But the influence that China has over this country. I don't know how you stop it. The only way to stop it is when you see these things. It says she's taken a plea deal and 10 years in prison. That's not enough. That's not enough. If you're in the United States acting on behalf of a foreign government, that should be considered either treason, sedition, whatever you want to call it. But operating as an unregistered foreign agent, no, that's called spying. You're spying. You're using your position. And she became a mayor. She became a public servant. And as a public servant was acting as a foreign agent for a foreign country. That should be treason. We're not talking about a private citizen that's influenced and publishing articles or whatever the case might be, or social media posts for China. We're talking about somebody that rose to the level of having influence directly over what Americans in her jurisdiction, what they do, the laws that are effectuated on them. And you're operating as an agent. That's not operating as a foreign agent. That is seditious conspiracy. That is using your influence, your power to exert the influence of another country. So I will land that there. Let's get into this story here. I was wrong. Yesterday, I said that I did not think that that the Supreme Court, based on the Alito and the Kagan back and forth in the opinion on Calais, I did not think that this would happen. And sure enough, it did. Supreme Court lets Alabama speed the adoption of congressional map, eliminating the majority black district. So another seat for the GOP here. Well, potentially another seat. The county, over the objection of liberal members, the court, over the objection of liberal members, sent litigation over the Republican-drawn map back to the lower court, which could speed up the state's efforts to use its map. So the lower district court still has to, rule on this effectively, but this paves the way for it. Like, this was the controversy here. The court fast-tracked the Alabama case a week after a similar decision in the Louisiana dispute. So that's all I got on that. There is Mark Elias freaking out, which is always a beautiful thing to see. Worth the price of admission here. The U.S. Supreme Court has allowed Alabama to select a different map for this year's congressional election in a stunning
last-minute move to interfere with another state primary election that has already begun. Not so fast, Mark Elias. The Democrats argued in the Virginia case that elections don't begin until after every single person has voted. So the election has not begun by your own side's definition of the term election. Of course, we know that's categorically absurd, but I'll entertain Mark Elias's position on that just for the moment. Virginia Supreme Court asked the court to restore new voting maps and redistricting flight. This is DOA, guys. This is how desperate they are. They will not quit. They didn't win at the Virginia Supreme Court, so now they're going to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. There's zero chance that the court even looks at this. Attorney General Jay Jones asked the United States Supreme Court to overturn the state Supreme Court's decision. Virginia claimed in an emergency appeal that the decision to strike down the maps, quote, deprive voters, candidates, and the Commonwealth of their right to the lawfully enacted congressional districts. The officials claimed the ruling amounted to, quote unquote, judicial defiance of the will of the voters. The Virginia Democrats urged the high court to take up its appeal because it revolves around what they claim is a question of federal law, the definition of election day, even though the state constitution is usually left to the state Supreme Court. Again, this is not what was up for debate. The definition of election day. What was up for debate was the word election. And as used in Virginia is the next general election, not election day. And the courts cleared this up and they said, you're comparing election to elected, meaning when they are elected, the process, it's a verb versus a noun. There is zero chance that this makes its way to the Supreme Court, that they hear this. And I do want to play this former Virginia Attorney General Jason Myers talking about the other thing they're suggesting. And to be clear, this is not going to happen either, but this is the Democrats are freaking the bleep out over Virginia.
This was a utter complete humiliation for Hakeem Jeffries and Virginia Democrats. They just burned $70 million, $10 million of taxpayer money, $70 million in campaign funds. And listen, if they had just paid attention to the Attorney General's opinion I issued last fall saying this is completely unconstitutional under the Virginia Constitution. And so, no, the Supreme Court, this is nothing but window dressing for them to try to save face with their donors. This is going to get laughed out by the Supreme Court. This is a last desperate gasp. But now what they're trying to do, as you reported, you have this scheme where they essentially want to unconstitutionally remove justices in Virginia. The Constitution of Virginia says you can only remove justices by impeachment in Virginia. In this case, by arbitrarily lowering the retirement age. It is an unconscionable scheme. It shows how little on the rule of law that they've been paying attention to just to pursue power. This was
all right. So again, I don't think that that's going anywhere. This idea that they're going to change the age for justices down to what is it, like 54, or they're going to change it to retirement at 54, which would mean like they would have to be in by 41, some stupid thing. It's so stupid. They are freaking out. And to be clear, if, and it is a big if now with map redistricting and everything else, if they resume power, that they will for sure pack the Supreme Court and try and change these laws and try and implement these changes, term limits on Supreme Court justices, caps on age, those types of things. Is it going to be effective? Probably not. Is it going to work? Probably not. Is it a possibility? Sure. This one in Virginia, though, that's DOA. That's dead on arrival, not going anywhere. It's not even been formally proposed. This all speculated from rumor. There was like a rumor that they were going to do this. But you know what? Keep those rumors out there because it does show how absolutely desperate they are. Fox News reported Stacey Abrams hit with a subpoena and alleged campaign finance violation saga. No one is above the law. So this is in the Georgia State Assembly in the Senate, in the Georgia Senate. She is going to be subpoenaed to testify on Friday at 10 a.m.
This is about the 2018 campaign and her new Georgia project and the Action Fund. She's already admitted that there were finance violations. They've paid the largest fine, I think, in Georgia history, $300,000 in fines for illegal campaign contributions. And, why they're having her come in to testify now, I mean, unless she's going to face like criminal charges for this, I mean, sure. Maybe that it's just like smoke and mirrors, man. You broke campaign finance law. They tried to put President Trump in jail over this. 34 felony counts. And you guys are just like, pay a fine. Pay a fine. You made billions of dollars off the green energy scam. You were paid off by the Bidens. Remember that? Stacey Abrams aligned organization that had $500 in the bank account. And then like the next year, they have $1 billion from the green scam. What was it? The Green New Deal. $5 billion was allocated to a company that she was associated with, or $2 billion. Just like, if you're not going to put them in jail, like, what's the point? What's the point? You're just injecting hopium and causing that dependency. The group has admitted to 16 violations earlier this year, agreed to pay a $300,000 fine. It doesn't say, what their purpose is. It says that the goal of the probe is to figure out who was involved in the decision-making behind the violations, along with specifics on how the funds were managed and who was aware of the activity. Why do you need lawmakers for that? Where's the GBI? Where's the FBI? Where's the SEC or the FCC? Why is the Georgia Senate the one that's investigating this? They're not a law enforcement body. They're legislatures. They make law. Why are they investigating this? Where is the criminal investigation into Stacey Abrams? I don't understand the process there. The only thing that they can do is, well, and again, assuming that the Georgia Senate is the same as the U.S. Senate, is hold these hearings in order to figure out how to make legislation so that it doesn't happen again. Okay, big freaking deal. They admitted to it. They paid a fine. Where's the criminal implications for this? All right. But I do want to give you guys some hopium because I microdose on hopium. Washington Times, White House official promises bombshell 2020 election evidence is on the way. This is now the third person. It says here, Ambassador Monica Crowley, the U.S. government's chief of protocol, which is basically like when foreign diplomats come over, she makes sure that they're taken care of. So not a massive position that would have any incredible insight, but it is interesting that administration officials are now saying this. Said the administration will, quote unquote, soon produce evidence that proves that Trump won the 2020 election. Quote, he did win in a landslide, and we will soon be able to give evidence about that, she said. This matches commentary by other high officials, including FBI Director Kash Patel, who have talked about evidence of a conspiracy to subvert the 2020 vote. And again, I think even bigger than Kash Patel was Susie Wiles last week on Thursday, when she said that we might find out soon that President Trump actually won a lot more of these states than we were originally told. That's all I got on this. We've still got so many, irons in the fire, pokers in the fire, and we'll see what comes of it. But this is now a third official coming out here and saying it. Again, microdose on hopium. I don't want you guys to get fully on that rug, but if there was ever a rug to stand on, that would be it. That would be the rug. Because that's the last rug. If you fall off of that rug, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. If our elections go by, well, they already are by the wayside. If they continue to go by the wayside, nothing else matters. So again, just real quick, I am reading the rants as they come in. I forgot this one when Ghost was on, but I wanted to read it at the break, and I forgot to read it at the break. The Bunny put this out, guys. First time in person at GART Deadwood. Join the First Timers group. You can contact at the VA Bunny on Telegram, or you can email Virginia fans of Badlands at gmail.com. The Deadwood First Timers hosts include Bay Theater Dave and Evan. All right. I'm excited to see Bay Theater Dave and Evan at GART. Bay Theater Dave was there last time. It seems like so short ago, Dave, that we were hanging out in that little cross between the casino and the hotel part, right? Like, you had to go through that elevator, go up the stairs.
hanging out there, watching that beautiful mountain background, or mountainous. I guess it's mountain for me in Florida. It's mountain for me. But hanging out there, it was a good time, man. Good time. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys back there. All right, let's keep moving here. President Trump, we should have done this during the gas or during the oil segment, but President Trump is now talking about cutting the gas tax, the federal gas tax.
Yeah, I'm going to reduce until let me tell you, as soon as this is over with Iran, as soon as it's over, you're going to see gasoline and oil drop like a rock. Going to be dropping down like a rock. I mean, already, look, just on the basis of, things have happened. When it first came about, 20% of the oil came out of Hormuz. That's a lot. But, with time, it's like they're going to Texas, they're going to Louisiana, they're going to Alaska, a lot of Alaska. Alaska's, sort of, it seems like very far away from Asia, but it's actually a relatively short trip by comparison to other locations they have to go to get oil. And they're going to Alaska. In fact, our big problem is we're building bigger docking to fill up.
All right, so cutting the national gas tax. This is from CBS News. Trump says he aims to suspend the gas tax for a period of time. Now, again, going back to what Ghost and I were talking about, I do believe that we are on the verge of at least not dismantling it, but creating competition for the OPEC cartel, the global oil cartel, and that is going to be through the United States, potentially Canada, and Venezuela. But CBS News says suspending the excise taxes on gas would save 18.4 cents per gallon on gas and 24.4 on diesel, but it would require an act of Congress. And you've already got Josh Hawley and Anna Paulina Luna, Una Panuna Banca, coming out saying that they plan to introduce a bill in the House and the Senate to suspend that federal gas tax in light of Trump's remarks. The federal gas tax goes towards the Highway Trust Fund to construct and repair roadways and for other transit projects. Can we stop paying for that? My roadways effing suck. I live in Florida, and my roadways suck. And I know mine aren't even as bad as some other states. I drive all over the country, or I've driven all over the country, and the roads suck. The interstate highways, which the federal government's supposed to be doing, they suck. So where is that money going? 18 cents per gallon for every gallon that's filled up in the United States, 25 cents for diesel, 24.4 for diesel. Where is that money going? And by the way, when I was reading this, I was outraged because maybe you guys have seen this in the states that you live in, but we have this new thing that's popping up here on interstate highways, express lanes. Have you guys seen these popping up? Not just on like the turnpike, like the Florida Turnpike, which is a private road, allegedly. We're seeing these, you go on the turnpike, you have to pay money. All right. The Florida Turnpike fucking sucks. The Florida Turnpike sucks. It's 2 lanes. You pay to get on it, and there's traffic all over the place. You got these absolute morons that drive 10 miles an hour under the speed limit in the left lane, and semi-trucks that cut out, and it takes them an hour to pass the truck that they cut out in front of you to pass. It's a disaster, absolute disaster. So then you get over into the interstates, the federal interstates, and they're now putting express lanes in them. And depending on what time of day it is, these express lanes can be ridiculous. I've seen express lanes in Miami where it's $18 to go like 5 miles because of traffic. They base the pricing on the burden. Where the hell is that money going? Okay, first and foremost, because I'll tell you right now, when I drive on I-95 in Palm Beach and it's down to 3 lanes of normal traffic and then 2 lanes of the express lane where people are paying $2 or $3 to drive, right? Those lanes, the express lanes, are wide open. Cars are doing 70, 80 miles an hour. But in the 3 lanes that are not, that are free, and by free, I mean you're paying 18.4 cents a gallon of gas for them. Think about it that way. The traffic is bumper to bumper. And it's like, man, it'd be really fucking nice If those 2 lanes were open and there were 5 lanes of free moving traffic instead of 3, we probably wouldn't have this jam up. But no, you got to make your $4, $5 for those cars that are driving in the express lane that want to do 80 miles an hour. And to be totally clear, I'm typically in that lane. Meanwhile, you've got these 3 lanes that if they had those extra 2 lanes, it'd be free flowing traffic. Meanwhile, you're paying 18 cents a gallon. It's a fucking scam. And President Trump, God bless him, not just take away the tax, put all that money on the states. If the state, because states are charging more taxes, by the way. Let me just check this. How much per gallon does Florida charge in gas taxes? Let me see. I bet you it's over 30 cents. Let me see. I could be wrong. 36 cents. 36 to 39 cents. So think about that. In Florida, we're paying 39 cents a gallon. Let's call it 38. And then we're paying 18.4 federal. We're paying 56 cents a gallon to taxes so that you guys can charge us to drive on fucking express lanes like on I-95 and on I-7. Well, I don't think I-75 has them that I know of. No, they do actually. They do. Before I-75 switches over to the West Coast, there are express lanes on I-75 in Broward County. I don't know about the West Coast. I haven't driven up I-75 in a long time. I'm sure like when you get near Tampa and all that, they're there. So you guys are making money hand over fist for that while charging us 56 cents overall per gallon for us to drive our car. So think about it this way. If you've got a 15-gallon tank and you're charging 50 cents, let's round it down to 50 cents. For every time you fill up your car, $7.50 is going to the government. Think about that. Every time you fill up your car, $7.50 or more, because it's 56 cents, not 50 cents, is going to the government. That's fucking bonkers, man. That is crazy. 55 cents in Washington. So add on your 18.4, 73 cents a gallon. 73 cents a gallon is going to the government, and they're charging you for turnpikes. You know, the turnpike in Florida, originally, they're like, oh, yeah, we're going to charge you a fee, but once the road's paid for, we'll take away the tolls. That never happened. You're still paying the tolls. Florida Turnpike, it's like $30 now to drive from Broward County to Disney or Orlando. It's crazy, man. So God bless President Trump taking that away. All right, let's jump into this story here. Sorry, I went off on a rant there just because I mean, it's crazy, right? Am I right here? I mean, we're sitting here arguing about, oil prices $4.60 a gallon. Yeah, well, it'd be $4 a gallon if we didn't have to pay all these damn taxes. And then on top of that, we're paying all these road taxes, express lane taxes and all that. Gas is going to come down, guys. Gas is going to come down. Just mark my words. It is going to come down. Trump is fracturing OPEC right now in a huge way. And U.S. energy dominance is going to resume shortly. And I always look at this and I think to myself, the timeline, and we do believe, right, that this has all been game planned out. And if this has all been game planned out, where is the timeline? What is the golden age, the ushering in of the golden age? July 4th. So I expect, again, we've got a month and a half, a little less than a month, or a little less than a month and a half, a little more. I fully expect things to be moving at the cyclic rate from now until July 4th. I think we're going to see things just move tremendously quick. And this is hopium. Laura Hay, hopium Bry. Yep. I am microdosing on hopium. I will say I've upped my dosage until July 4th. Now I'm going to party hard on July 4th. And then after that, I'll go back to microdosing. Right now I'm megadosing. I'm megadosing. Let's go. All right. From Politico, lawsuit seeks to halt Trump's reflecting pool makeover. Why? It's too blue. I'm not kidding. I wish that was I'm not kidding. It's because it's too blue. In a lawsuit filed on Monday in federal district court, a nonprofit group contends that the National Park Service violated the National Historic Preservation Act by beginning to repaint the bottom surface of the landmark in a bright blue color. Quote, the vivid blue coating will fundamentally alter the visual and experiential character of the pool and the broader Lincoln Memorial Grounds landscape. The new collaboration will cause the pool to resemble a large swimming pool rather than the reflective civic landscape it was designed to be, distorting the experience of the site for the millions of visitors who come to it each year. It's too fucking blue. The White House put this out, and I think it's the most perfect thing I've ever seen. It's the most perfect thing I've ever seen. Trump derangement syndrome prescription, treatment, trusting in Trump, listen to the national anthem, limit fake news, don't be a panicking. I would say don't be a bitch. But yeah, this was President Trump in the White House. Quick 12-second clip that sparked that diagnosis.
They've got serious Trump derangement syndrome, which actually is a disease. I'm hearing it is actually a disease. It's an honor. Today we're also enacting.
So before that, he was saying, I should do the opposite. I should just say the opposite. And let me see if I can find that clip. That clip is definitely worth watching. He was actually saying I should just do the opposite of what they tell me to do. It's not this one, is it? No, it's not that one. Hold on, I'll find it. It's right here. It's right. Oh, maybe not. Okay, never mind. It's that same press conference, and he's actually saying, I should. You know what? I'm just going to start saying the opposite. Build the wall, or we don't want to build the wall. We don't want to build the wall, and they'll turn around and say build it. Now, is that lawsuit going to go anywhere? I highly doubt it. Can you imagine going to the judge in district court in D.C., which D.C. has been favorable at the appeals level, has been favorable to Trump. But could you imagine going to them and being like, yeah, you know what? The pool's too blue. You got to stop it. Too blue? Is it still going to reflect the Washington Monument? Yeah. Is it going to look good? Yeah. Well, they deliberately meant it to be a disgusting ornate gray filled with duck shit and algae growing from all the duck shit. Yeah. Trump's going to have skimmers on that. He should just have like a laser skimmer that goes the length of the pool. Like imagine that, like he puts like a system in and once a day it just goes down and does like a laser cleaning of the pool. How fucking cool would that be? How cool would that be? They have those. They have like laser like skimmers, like automatic skimmers that just go and like clean the pool. Like just do that. You have it going. It only needs to make a pass like once a month and just clean it up. Let's go. Let's go ahead and hit another sponsor here before we move on. And got a couple more stories before we get out of here. Laser Sharks, finally. I'm with you on that. Laser Sharks for sure. All right, guys, have you tried 1775 coffee yet? Now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped with only 1,000 units available. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin-free and mold-free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because Freedom isn't scooped with a plastic scooper, a frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's political opinions, and a black 1775 tumbler, $170 worth of coffee and gear for just $99. This is for the ones who have been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble and wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. All right. Let's see. You know what? I have been neglecting the YouTube chat, and I feel terrible about it. So counties get their cut of the gas tax too. Yes, they do. They also get taxes a whole bunch of other ways, like crazy other ways. They get taxes when you register your vehicle. They get taxes when you get your driver's license. They get taxes off your insurance. They get taxes off of everything, man. We're just overtaxed on every damn thing out there. And so screw that shit.
Did you guys see the Spencer Pratt commercial? He's the guy that's running for Los Angeles mayor. And they put out this ad, and it is insane. Like, the labor unions put this ad out, and if it didn't say vote no or don't vote for Spencer Pratt, if it didn't say that at the end of the ad, I would have thought this was a Spencer Pratt ad. Check this shit out.
Republican Spencer Pratt is the last thing Los Angeles needs for mayor. Pratt opposes using taxpayer money to build brand new houses for our unhoused neighbors,
Hell yeah.
saying it's time for the homeless to get help or get out.
Hell yeah.
Pratt thinks LA needs thousands more police officers rather than more social workers.
Hell yeah.
Republican Spencer Pratt thinks public employee unions should have less power, not more. LA is on the right track and needs to stay the course. Vote no on Republican Spencer Pratt.
What an endorsement right there. LA is on the right track. LA is a shithole. LA is an open air drug market. The whole entire thing. Well, not the whole thing, but I mean, you go to places now, you can watch the videos right now on YouTube of guys just riding their bikes around and just open air drug use, tents all along the side of the road, people taking shits and just doing their zombie. Yeah, LA is totally on the right track. Me and Chris Paul talk about this all the time because it always seems like these stories come up, and he's, a former California resident, so and LA resident, so he knows, kind of the ins and outs there. But California in general has just completely and totally effed up the homeless situation there, and all the billions of dollars that have been dumped into it have produced nothing in terms of results. Now, I'm not saying that Spencer Pratt is somehow, the saving grace. The fact that the unions are pulling those things out and highlighting those things as, his campaign is just bonkers to me. Is anybody in LA like, yeah, you know what? We want social workers instead of more police. Local police. I'm not talking about ICE and all this shit that they've been brainwashed to think are bad. Or is anybody out there like, you know what? I really want my taxpayer dollars going to building more housing while I'm barely able to afford my own house because of the tax. But yes, please build more houses. Oh, it's not free. I got to pay for that. I don't like that. I don't like that so much. Maybe we do need Spencer Pratt. Maybe LA is not on the right track. Maybe the open air drug markets and the homeless population increase, people taking shits in the middle of the street. Maybe we don't need that stuff. Maybe. And oh, by the way, we're getting our asses taxed off to pay for all that stuff. Yeah, maybe let's cut that shit out. Maybe try something new. That's why I'm excited. That's why I'm excited about the Tennessee redistricting, and getting rid of Steve Cohen in Tennessee's 9th. Maybe you'll see some changes when you have, because state maps tend to follow congressional maps. And so you might see some changes in Tennessee at a local level as well. Who knows? But all I know is that is whoever wrote that ad for the labor union, you guys are desperate. If that's the shit that you can dig on him, more police, taxpayer money for unhoused people, in LA is on the right track. If that's wow, you are really speaking to the people in Malibu and Beverly Hills and all the other rich places in that area. Yeah, you're really talking to them. Let's see, where are we going to go next? I think we're just about done. Oh, I did want to bring up this article. So I was going to bring this up yesterday. And on Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, 7 San Diego put this story out. Disney cruise ship passenger says ICE detained her waiter upon disembarking. Now, this was part of a narrative, and I want to jump over to this Antonio Gracefo article on the Gateway Pundit. False framing a federal raid on Disney ship. Child pornography, not anti-immigration sentiment. Now, there was a raid that took place on the Disney cruises, and it got put off as an anti-immigration raid. And that's not the case. And I have some insight to this that I got back when I remember the conversation I had when the Mar-a-Lago shooting took place. Or not shooting, excuse me, not Mar-a-Lago. The Ryan, what was his name? Not Ryan Zahn, the guy that was going to shoot Trump at the golf course, never got around to it. But around that same time, I heard something from somebody that has some knowledge on this story. So let me cover this story, and then I'll just tell you briefly what I know and what to look for
potentially coming out of this. Between April 23rd and the 27th, U.S. Customs Border and Protection boarded 8 cruise ships at the Port of San Diego as part of an ongoing child sexual exploitation material enforcement operation. Now, that's really important right there. Boarding the ships as a CSAM operation. On April 28th, HSI San Diego arrested 20, and that's also important, HSI, arrested 23 crew members from multiple ships under Operation Tidal Wave, acting on intelligence from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Of the 28 people detained, CBP confirmed 27 were involved in the receipt, the possession, transportation, distribution, or viewing of CSAM. 26 Filipino nationals, 1 Portuguese, and 1 Indonesian. 10 were working on the Disney Magic. The workers were not undocumented migrants targeted because of their immigration status. They entered the U.S. legally on valid C1/D visas, crew visas, which were revoked following the criminal involvement. So the article, the story was this was immigration, but these people were all legally working on the cruise ships through the visas that they allow for these people to work. Most cruise ships are based in foreign countries like the Bahamas so that they can avoid U.S. Employment laws, and et cetera, but all the employees have visas to allow them to come and work in the United States. So in other words, when the cruise is docked, they can get off the boat and go and do whatever they got to do. Now, the thing that was interesting to me, and again, I haven't heard directly that there's a relation here. I'll reach out to my source and see if maybe I can get some more information. But I know a local police officer that has worked with Department of Homeland Security and alluded to the possibility of a story like this coming out soon. And this was back when the Ryan, whatever his name was, and let me see if I can get it in the chat. Ryan Routh, that's what it is. The Ryan Routh story kicked off. What I am told is that there is actual CSAM being made on these cruise ships. And I'm not going to say any specific cruise ships, but that it's being made on these cruise ships. And so I think we might learn some stuff about this CSAM on the cruise ships. Yes, drugged kids. But even kids that they're not aware of it being made. And it's not just the kids. I'm sure there's adult stuff as well, but that's not CSAM. So it doesn't get flagged in conversations and WhatsApp and all that stuff. And so I think that there's a bigger story here, and maybe we find out, maybe we don't, because if we did find out, that would put a lot of distrust in the cruise industry. And so, hidden cameras. That's what I was told. And again, this is secondhand hearsay, and this is sources familiar with the situation. So I'm being very transparent with you guys on that end. But yes, that's what I was told. Hidden cameras that have been uncovered. Now, I'm not saying it's every single room. It's not every single whatever. But yes, I have been told that there's investigations into whether or not there's hidden cameras, and seeing CSAM reports coming out of San Diego. Now, I was told my sources are in Florida and in East Coast ports. So we'll see. I thought that was really fascinating when I saw that. When I saw that report, it sparked my thoughts about that. So, and then last thing before we get out of here, and I don't know if we have any other rants. We do not have any other rants, so we will end it with this clip here. I'll be back after the clip. I'm not going to sign off yet, but President Trump was asked about his dream team ticket, and I thought he made a really interesting comment here.
And he's running, and he's in second place. So we got a lot of beauties out there, JD. I envy you and other people. I don't know. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be JD? Is it going to be somebody else? I don't know. Does anybody have? Okay, let's go. You ready? Who likes JD Vance? Who likes Marco Rubio? All right. Sounds like a good ticket. JD. That was a perfect ticket. By the way, I do believe that's a dream team, but these are minor details. That does not mean you have my endorsement under any circumstance. But, it's a perfect, there was a big and then a very nice. I think it sounds like presidential candidate and vice presidential candidate.
I love that. This is not an endorsement. It's a dream ticket, but this is not an endorsement under any circumstance. Maybe he's going to run. Maybe. We'll see. All right, guys. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. I could take a peek at the chat. I did last time, and it was under less favorable when Alpha bailed on me and triggered the chat a little bit there, but that's okay. Tired of this shit. Thank you, Badlands. Real information, not an entire show on bad Dems and their shenanigans like other podcasts for days. Tired of being told what we already know. I can't stand those shows. I'm sorry. I will never be that guy that's just going to sit here and tell you Democrats are the devil and we got to back the Republican Party and we got to blah, blah, blah. I will never be that person. I will never be that. We'll talk about it, but I'll call out the bad Republicans too. There's a lot of them. Let's see. Yeah. Cruises, man. I love cruises. They're a lot of fun, but you just got to know, like, you might be, if you get busy with your girl, somebody in like some other country might be viewing that stuff on behind a paywall, and you would never even know it. You would never even know it. Voyeur porn. And the adult stuff doesn't get caught. The adult stuff doesn't get caught. Just think of it this way. Like if you're in a private location, right? And somebody films your room and they catch you like, whatever. Okay. They don't disclose it here in the US. They don't put it out here. They send it over to Russia or send it over to Europe, somewhere there. And they make it so that it's really difficult to see faces and all that stuff and edit it out. And nobody would ever know. Nobody's ever going to be like, oh my God, I know that guy. Let me see if he's aware that there's a paywall where his porn is being disclosed. But when it's CSAM, it gets flagged because you can't send that stuff over the internet and all these other things. You can't send it over that. So it is a concerning thing. Again, what I'm being told is just it's secondhand hearsay, but it's sources very familiar with the matter. And I hate using those. And I'll tell you when I do that I can't say it's true or not, but that's what we're told. That's what I was told. Okay. So on that note, let's talk about, we talked about that, the Dream Team. Let's also talk about GART Deadwood. It's coming up June 25th through the 28th. Badlands Media is heading back to Deadwood, South Dakota for the 12th stop on the Great American Restoration Tour. We're going to see President Trump up there on Mount Rushmore celebration all year long, staring down, giving the stank eye to Teddy Roosevelt, because when he decided to run for president for a third term, he kind of subverted William Taft and allowed Woodrow Wilson to get in office. Whether you're attending in person or virtually, a GART veteran or a GART virgin, there's something for everyone. Early bird prices for virtual tickets are available through May 15th. Merch packages are now also available for both in-person or virtual ticket holders. Get your GART 12 tickets today at badlandsmedia.tv/events. All right. The last time Chris Paul and I talked about Rushmore, when we talked about Deadwood, we got a little boop. So maybe we'll get like a Teddy Roosevelt boop this time. I don't know. All right. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. Smash that thumbs up if you have not done so. A little over 3,200 watching. Tonight we got Why We Vote. We're going to have Dr. Andrew Paquette, Zark Files joining Ash and I. I said it last week, but both Ash and I were off on the timing of that. So it's this tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern in the new channel. And it's going to be a fantastic show. And so tune in for that. And then other than that, we'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Take care. God bless.
Thank you so much for joining us. And don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.